Hello everyone. This is going to be a very important video on how we have been duped into once again believing only half truths instead of the whole truth. Now, whether you have interest in astrology or not, I would really like you to please listen to the end and keep an open mind, and you might just walk off with a new perspective of reality. So, I'm going to take us back to my PowerPoint that I've got here just for the introduction section. So what I'm going to be going over in this video is the difference between tropical and sidereal astrology. This would possibly be the first time that you're hearing of this if you don't know much about astrology, but essentially majority of the world who study or practice astrology uses a system called tropical astrology, or is also known as Western astrology. Now, in the world of trying to decipher truth from illusion, and if you want to be on the accurate path, then tropical is not the way to go. So I'm going to be explaining why, and I will actually show you using the astronomy program that I was just on called Stellarium, and I will be showing you how we have in fact been given a completely incorrect astrological system to lead the masses astray. So there are people out there, like a lot of people out there, that have no interest in astrology. We are in the age of the lowest level of consciousness and awareness, that is the Iron Age. So people are not very concerned or not even very aware of anything to do with the esoteric or astral influences at all. Most people are only concerned with the material world. They are only worried about the money that's going to come into their bank at the end of the day, what food they're going to eat, and I don't know, the next fun event in their life. So majority of people don't think beyond what they can experience through their five senses. And that is just part of the age that we're living in. But if you have studied into conspiracies and you are far enough to realize that we, in fact, did not evolve from chimps and apes, we are not random, we have come from previous ages of very advanced civilizations, and they, in fact, followed and observed the constellations and luminary bodies in the sky. So this knowledge has been not only, it has been swept under the rug quite a fair bit, but it has also been, like all knowledge from that time, heavily, I suppose, rewritten or jumbled up to hide the truth. So we have in this world a group of people, or we have the Cabal, and these people who I refer to as the controllers of this realm. They control the game on this level, or they are, in a certain way, gatekeepers, and they are the ones that have actually taken the ancient science of astrology and, first of all, tried to make a joke out of it. Instead of just completely covering it up and pretending like it doesn't exist, they have simply, for instance, if you think of newspaper astrology, that's what they've done to astrology. So if you were to ask anybody pretty much what their zodiac sign is, the person might have to think about it for a second, but they will eventually figure out. And most people have heard of zodiac signs. They know what they are, even if they believe that it is just hocus pocus. So they haven't completely hidden it. They have left it in the public eye, and they have even put it in newspapers. But the way that they have done it is, first of all, they are using that tropical astrology system, which I will explain, but they have also done it in a way that is so vague and broad, and it makes astrology, I mean, the astrology that you read in the newspaper is so far from accurate. It is nothing like the astrology that the ancients studied or referred to in certain scriptures. It's very basic. It makes people think that astrology is just about 12 signs, and people seem to disregard it because they think that everyone is so unique they couldn't be fit into 12 categories. And that's exactly right, because we're not. This is what I mean. They've completely made a, I guess, cheap store version of astrology to make people think that it is not real and it's not true at all, and just to completely disregard it. So that has worked on a lot of people, but there are still a fairly large amount of people in the world that still, besides that, have interest in astrology. So they go on to then study astrology, and they learn about chart interpretations, they learn about transits, progressions, returns. So then they study deeply into it. And they pretty much, I would say, majority of those people never realize that the astrology that they were following and studying that whole time was based off centuries ago and is no longer accurate, although they are told that it is. And this is no different to, I suppose, Western medical doctors who spend their whole life giving out and prescribing medications that they are told and are brainwashed and think that is curing or healing their patient, and they never realize that they have been poisoning their patient and making their patient more sick this entire time. So the agenda that is, I guess, just, pushed on the masses is not only in the healthcare system, it is not only in like the political system, it's everywhere. It's in the education system, where we are taught so much about his story that is not our story. So it's everywhere, and it is also in astrology. But astrology, like I said, if you're not interested in astrology, I still want you to listen, because it is actually, whether you believe it or not, it's still affecting your daily life. It still affects the world that you live in, because I'm going to be explaining in future videos as I go through to explain this realm, because I want to teach whoever is interested in listening to what I have to say about the realm that you live in, and how to better know yourself. As the age-old quote says, "Man, know thyself, for within is hidden the treasures of treasures." So that is what I plan to be doing in a couple of the videos that I'll be posting. In today's modern society, we now have the news. We have televisions that tell lies to our vision by displaying the news, and we watch the news to, well, I guess, see what's going on in the world, but it's through the goddess media of illusion. So it's not the accurate news, but they have given us news on the television, which is a distraction majority of the time, of course, to brainwash people, program people. That's why it's called telegram programs. But what people don't realize is that this, what you see on the screen here right now, is the original news. The zodiac, which means circle of animals, is the original news. It was the original, I guess, version of a television that people would look to see the energetic influences going on in the world. But as soon as, Earth was reset, the history was rewritten, and truth was hidden, they turned the masses' minds away from the constellations in the sky, demonizing them, and then turning people's eyes to the television and the media for fake news. It became the fake news, and they demonized the true and real news, while they follow the true and real news to use it to their advantage. They know that time is running out for them, and I know that because I look at the sky, and I will teach that to you all who listen. But it begins with realizing that this was the original news, and the news that they give us is fake, and it is a fake replacement of the original news. So I'm going to skip ahead to the next slide, which I've already talked about a little bit, is the newspaper astrology. I believe pretty much everyone's seen this in the newspaper. Not only are the dates incorrect, which I will show you by using the astronomy program, but it is also so vague and so broad that this is where something like the Barnum effect plays in, because you could basically read any of these zodiac sign passages and relate it to yourself because it is that vague and that broad. So if someone was to read you one and you didn't know that it wasn't actually yours, you'd still believe it. So it just turns astrology into some sort of like a kindergarten type of thing. That's another photo of it. Let's just go on to, well, this photo I just put here just to talk a little bit about the relevance of astrology. If you've ever sort of studied into the architecture of ancient civilizations, cathedrals, and the mystery of how they could have been built by people who were supposedly pre-technological era, and that's because they couldn't have been. That is the false history that we have been given. So, for example, if you want to search up even right now, just these stone sculptures, including marble sculptures, where the detail of them is not able to be done today. We can't even do it today with the technology that we have. I mean, these 3D printers, they could not even carve eyelashes on a stone sculpture of a person out of marble, but yet it was done all the way back then. And then in relation to constellations, there are many buildings. I mean, even the pyramids or the Sphinx, that's a different topic, but the idea is that there are many structures out there that are built in exact alignment with particular constellations. There are even, I can't recite the name of them, but there are even rocks out there that usually cast a shadow, except on the summer and winter solstice every year. The rock does not cast a shadow. To think that, for example, those who built these structures in alignment with the constellations, to think that was just either coincidence, or I suppose, I don't know what people would think, maybe that they just did it for the fun of it, is ignorant to say the least, because the precision that it would require and the knowledge that it would require to be able to do that and do it accurately is, I mean, we can't even do it today. So that is why it is quite relevant. I'm going to be getting into tropical astrology now. What is it, and why is it inaccurate when majority of the world follows it? The only people that don't follow it but probably don't really see it the way that I'm trying to portray it would be those who study Eastern astrology, which is called Vedic astrology. They use the sidereal dates, but they use a different chart. They don't use a wheel, which I'll show later. They use a kind of square chart, so it's a bit different, but their dates are typically correct. But the tropical astrologers, even something like Hellenistic astrology, which is supposed to be quote unquote traditional astrology, still uses the Western dates. And so I'm going to explain now where these dates came from. So how'd they even get them if they don't align with the current sky? So these dates came from 0 AD. It's pretty much around the time of like the biblical era. That is when these dates were actually relevant and true. So even if you were to read the Bible in an alchemical and astrotheological way, it's using tropical astrology. So it will refer to the sky according to tropical astrology, but that is not relevant today because the constellations move. This is because of the precession of the equinox. Every 72 years, the constellations shift 1 degree. But tropical astrology does not account for the precession of the equinox. So they aren't accounting for the shifting of the constellations. They are assuming that the sky has not changed since 0 AD and it will never change. But in the time since 0 AD, the constellations have actually shifted roughly 24.5 degrees, which is almost a whole zodiac sign. Although there is some leeway where there is some overlappings between the dates where the sun sign hasn't actually changed for some people. That's why now, 2023 years later, these dates don't match up when you look at the sky. And it's not about what a computer gives you. It's not about the numbers and dates written on a piece of paper. It's about the heavenly bodies in the sky that is actually doing the influencing. So that is why you want to be looking to the sky, and it's not even through a computer. I mean, the astronomy program helps us, but what's even better is if you can just look at the sky and be able to read where everything is, then that is what's accurate. So using an astronomy program which does reflect the sky is the closest that you'll be getting. So here I have developed a dummy chart just to show you. On the left here is a tropical astrology chart, and on the right is a sidereal chart. They both are exactly the same. It does cut out, my screen recording cuts out the time and date of birth and whatnot, which is a bit of a pity, but it's exactly the same. You can even go and check it if you don't believe me. I've just made one up, 9th of July, 1977, 7:30 p.m. And they both are using the Placidus house system. I didn't even use Placidus, but at least they're the same for this representation. But as you can see here, on the tropical astrology chart, the sun is in the constellation Cancer, moon is in the constellation Taurus, and the rising sign is in the constellation of Aries. But then when we look at the sidereal chart, you don't have to understand this, you just have to see how different it is. Maybe if I point a cursor, that would be better. Sun, moon, rising sign in Aquarius. And then on the sidereal chart, we've got the sun is in Gemini, not Cancer. Then moon is in Aries, not Taurus. And rising sign is in Capricorn, not Aquarius. So this is how much it affects the chart. It's not just like one little minor difference. And especially since people who know nothing about astrology tend to think that we are just one zodiac sign. This is what I really don't like about what we've been kind of programmed to think so little of astrology, is to associate ourselves with just one sign. But the thing is that you're not just one sign, you're every sign. If you see in the chart here, there are all 12 zodiac signs in this chart. So you are all of them, but you are each sign to varying degrees, and each sign influences, different parts of your life and different aspects of you in different ways. So that's how it's relevant. And I didn't even, if someone's to say what's your sun sign, I don't even think you should even care unless you're going to be looking at the whole chart, because you got to be looking at the aspects to really know what sort of how the sun is acting upon them. And what was the other thing I was thinking of? It was in my mind just a second ago. Oh yeah, I got it. A lot of people like to debunk astrology by saying, for example, I'm a Scorpio, but my cousin's a Scorpio, and we're nothing alike. So therefore, astrology is definitely fake. But as I just said, you both have, well, first of all, in that situation, it could just be partly because everybody's thinking of themselves as a sign when they're most likely not that sign. But then it's also because for, like I said, it all depends on the aspect to the sun in that sign and what other planets are in that house and what house is the sign of the sun in, and it is just not the same. This is how every single person is unique, and no one will ever have the same chart as somebody else. Especially if you're looking at degrees, the degrees will never be the same. Okay, now I've already showed you what an astrological chart looks like. This is just one example. It's one that I just got off Google. It kind of just puts things into perspective of how it is actually a science, even though most people don't consider it to be a science, but it was most definitely considered that way in ancient times, in the past, that people did give credit to astrology being a science. And science just means knowledge, in case you didn't know. I'm actually going to go back to this for a second, and so I'm going to go through and show you in the sky how the sidereal chart is going to be matching up, but the tropical chart will not be matching up. Hence why if you were to go get a reading with a tropical astrologer and they were to read this, I named it John Doe, but like if they're going to read this to John, then partly some things might make a little bit of sense because of the Barnum effect, but in other ways it's just not accurate. If you're trying to if you are into astrology because you understand what astrology really is, which tropical astrologers don't. They usually I don't even know what they would really be thinking of astrology as. They want to study astrology for the sort of forecasting and the relationships and how much money will they make in their life, and I don't know, for that kind of fairies and I don't even know how to describe it. Just not really for what astrology really is, and they're not really thinking of it as the code. Like I see it as a code when I am studying the sky or studying a wheel. I see it as the code. It's the code in that sky that's the matrix code, and when you're born, you get a snapshot of it, and then that's going to be kind of what's played out in your life. I want to talk about this in another video much more in depth, but I see it very differently to how the typical Western astrologer maybe would, and even Eastern astrologer in that sense. Okay, so we're going to start with I'm not going through everything, it's going to take too long. I'm just going to do the three major ones. So Sun in Cancer, Moon in Aries, or ascending in Aquarius, and then I'm going to show you how it's actually Sun in Gemini, Moon in Aries, and rising sign in Capricorn. Okay, I think I've already put the dates in. This is Stellarium, by the way. It's free if you ever want to go and just look at the sky. No, that's not what I want. I need the clock. Hello? Yep. All right. So I already put that in. Let me just double check it. Yep, 9th of July 1977. It's a pity that it crops it out in the recording. Oh wait, the time. Oops. Oh, and I have to change the location as well. I just put it in as Melbourne and 7:30 p.m. Okay. Sorry for going back and forwards. That's 7:30, and we are gonna have to put location. Australasia. Yeah, I suppose. Okay. Now just check that's right. Cool. Okay, so we're going to start by looking for the sun. Instead of wasting time, we'll just search it. I need the horizon for later. Okay, I'll get it back later. Let's get rid of the ground. Okay, sun. Here we go. Stop glitching. This is the sun, and as you can see, it's in the constellation Gemini. That's the twins, and this is Cancer over here. The sun is very much not in the sign of Cancer. As you can see, you know, the time, the dates here. I put the location in as Melbourne, same as the chart. This is a snapshot, like a picture of the sky on the night that John Doe was born. And the sun is in Gemini. And if I click on that, this cuts out as well, but it says sun at the top. And then over here, it's in, usually it says the constellation. Yeah, there we go. Gem. It doesn't say the full thing. Gemini. So now we're going to look for the moon. I could just find it here. There we go. That's the moon, and it is in Aries here. So if I go for a look, constellation ARI, Aries. It looks like it's very close to Pisces, but it's in Aries. But the moon was supposed to be in Taurus, according to tropical astrology, but it's not. The moon is in Aries. So there we go. There's another misalignment. Now, to look for the ascending sign, it's a bit different. We're going to need the ground back. Let's get this one. So the ascending sign is just the constellation that's rising on the eastern horizon when you're born. My fan's going crazy on my laptop, so hopefully it's not loud on the microphone. But this is the eastern horizon, and this is Capricorn. Capricorn is the constellation that is on the eastern horizon when John Doe was born. But according to the tropical astrology chart, it said it was Aquarius. But Aquarius is somewhere down here below the eastern horizon. So this is just to give you an idea of how whatever sort of date you have been going by this entire time does not reflect the sky. Sidereal astrology is current sky astrology, and it is the most relevant one. The Cabal that use astrology to a T, they just don't want you to know it, follow, of course, sidereal astrology. They follow true sky astrology. Yeah, so I'm just going to stop at those three, otherwise we're going to be here like forever. But I think you get the point. Now we're going to go to the next slide. I've already been there. I suppose what's next? Nothing. Okay, I'll finish off a little bit about the crosses. This isn't really talked about very much in common mundane astrology, but because I study alchemical astrology, which has a different approach on it, it's more of an esoteric approach to astrology. I have great, I spend a lot of time focusing on the three crosses, and you can tell it's not common because this is the only photo that I could find. I'm probably gonna have to make my own to really start to talk more about these crosses. But there are three crosses in astrology. There's the cardinal cross, the fixed cross, and the mutable cross. And without going into too much depth here, because I wanted to keep it simple for anybody, whether you know about astrology or not. It basically, these are the modalities. So there's 3 modalities for the 4 elements. And basically how it goes is that there is one sign that has a specific element and a specific modality. So Capricorn, being an earth sign, has the cardinal modality. Libra, being air, Cancer water, and Aries fire, are all cardinal. Then Aquarius air, Scorpio water, Leo fire, Taurus earth, they're all fixed. And Sagittarius fire, Virgo earth, Gemini air, and Pisces water are all mutable. Now, in an alchemical or esoteric way of putting this, mutable cross is the adept, fixed cross is the master, and cardinal cross is the grand master. In a sort of, like, I'm going to go into this in another video in more depth so I can relate it to the chakras, but just to put it simply, this is kind of at the lowest level of spirituality. Fixed is a bit more because it's master, and then cardinal is the grand master, which is supposed to be the highest level of the chakras, simply because of the planets that rule each modality. Because the mutable cross only has Jupiter and Mercury ruling the mutable cross, and Jupiter and Mercury, which is Zeus and Hermes, are not rulers of the higher chakras or the higher levels of consciousness and awareness. They are the lower chakras, which the lower chakras are closer to earth, whereas the higher chakras are closer to heaven, like, quote unquote. So that's why it puts mutable down a bit lower. And we are currently in a mutable age. We're in the age of Pisces, and Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, meaning Zeus. Which I will go into in another video, because I definitely want to explain why we're in the age that we're in, why we're in the time that we're in, and it will just make a lot more sense to you, because everything that's going on now is cosmically aligned. And if you know how to read the sky, if your mind isn't so closed that you disregard astrology, as this is what I'm saying, I see it in a science standpoint, I see it in an matrix decoding, esoteric kind of way. I see it as very relevant to, being able to decipher certain events and influences that happen not only in the world on the grand scale, but also in our personal lives. And so that is why I really do study into it, but I don't see astrology in a sort of, in a mainstream type of way. I don't see it in a mainstream, mundane astrology way. I see it in a much deeper point of view. So that's just a very basic way of, getting you to understand my current take on it, and also why I had to begin with explaining why tropical astrology is not accurate whatsoever. It's completely off base, especially if you're someone who is wanting to, read transits, which are the, supposedly the positions of the constellations and planets in the sky currently. If you're reading the transits from tropical astrology, it does not match the current sky, and the current sky is obviously what's going to be influencing the world, quite obviously, because it's the actual planets and luminaries in the sky. So anyways, I'm going to leave that there just for your introduction. Maybe it changed a lot in your eyes. I think I'll do another separate video on dates, I think, for sun signs, because I'm sure people are going to be interested in knowing their sun sign, even though I said that it's quite useless only knowing your sun sign. You got to know your whole chart, because everybody has a wheel, and it is very important to know your wheel, whether you know how to read it yourself or someone reads it for you. It is your code, and it is part of knowing thyself. So that is for another video. Thank you for listening.